Hi, this is Amy Hazel, and today we're going to tie some really easy bonefish flies. I'm going to start with an NS 150 curved shrimp hook from Arex. This fly can be tied in a lot of different sizes. Happen to be using a size 6 here, and I have the SL45 Gamakatsu bonefish hook is another great hook for this fly. Now, when it comes to eyes, you can either use painted lead eyes like these, painted brass eyes. You can use brass eyes, or you can use bead chain eyes. You want to use all of them when you're tying these flies so that you have a variety of weights to use. Sometimes you'll be fishing skinny flats that don't have much water on them, and you don't want really heavily weighted flies. Then I go to bead chain. I'll even tie some flies up without any weight at all. So just using a little thread here. This happens to be Vivis 6/0 thread. You can use any thread you want. You can get creative with the colors. Just make sure the thread is fairly strong because you want to really crank on the eyes when you attach them. So here's how I attach a set of lead eyes. So these are double pupil lead eyes that I get from Hairline, and this size is extra small. You don't want to go to very large on these eyes. This is a lot of weight actually for a small fly. So what I'm doing here is I'm wrapping the fly, and I'm going to use a series of wraps. I use figure of 8 wraps. I use saddle wraps, which is when you just wrap on the side of the eyeball on one side of the hook. And then you also do kind of a posting or parachute type wrap around the base of the eyes. Don't be shy to really crank down on these eyes because you don't want them to twist. If they twist, the fly will be ruined because they're specifically positioned on top of the hook so that the fly rides upside down with the hook point up. So these eyes feel pretty strong to me. I can't twist them easily. And just to be extra sure, I'm going to give this a drop of glue. And this is a UV resin that I'm using here. There are a lot of UV resins available on the market. This is one of the strongest ones I've ever found. It's called the Pro Sportfisher UV Resin Thin Flex. This is a really, really nice resin. You just hit it with a little UV light after applying it, and it instantly dries. There are a lot of other resins, like I said, on the market. Loon makes them. Gulf makes them. You'll find those everywhere. So what the rest of this fly is made up of crystal flash. And for this particular pattern, I'm going to choose pearl crystal flash. And that's going to be the tail, which I'm tying in right now. That's going to be the body, and it's also going to be the wing. So you don't need very many ingredients to tie these bonefish flies. You can get fancier. You can use, a lot of rubber legs and all kinds of other ingredients. But for the most simple, basic fly where you don't want to buy tons of materials, this is a great place to start. Now, as I wrap the body up, you can see that my crystal flash wants to kind of separate, and you can amend that by twisting the crystal flash a little bit so it becomes a little more rope-like. But I just want a nice smooth body as I wrap up here. I've got a little bit of a booty on this fly, a little bit of a butt on it, but that doesn't really matter. I'm going to wrap that crystal flash up and around the eyes so I have a nice crystally look around the eyes, and I'm just going to tie that off right there at the eye. I'm going to tie that crystal flash off tightly. Now what I'm doing here is I'm applying a little bit of UV glue to the body, and this just gives it strength. Bonefish don't have real sharp teeth, but there are a lot of little fish that will be grabbing your fly that do have sharp teeth. And if you have a little bit of coating of UV resin over the body, the little tiny fibers aren't going to break because of those sharp little teeth. We're just looking for a fly that's going to be, tough and is going to last as long as we hope it will last. We don't want it to fall apart. We'd rather lose it on a big fish. So now I'm going to take this fly, and I'm actually going to, because I don't have a rotary vise, I have a regal vise which can be rotary, but I'm going to just flip the fly over in the vise because now I'm working on the wing, which is really, this is how the fly is going to land in the water. So I'm going to snip off the crystal flash here, and then I'm going to immediately tie it right back in. So I just like the angle I get better when I snip it off and then retie it in. So I build a little head base there for tying the flash in, and I make it just a little longer than the tail. I'm going to give it a good tight tie down here, and then I'm actually going to fold the crystal flash back and tie over it again. This makes for a very strong wing. Does make for a little bit of a bigger head, and it's not as tidy, but you know, that doesn't really matter in saltwater flies. I'm way more concerned about that with steelhead flies. But now I'm just going to trim this wing and take a look at the fly and see how it looks. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking the wing, it's just a little bit too long, a little bit longer than I like. Ideally, I like that wing to protrude slightly past the length of the tail. So once I get this whip finished, and I whip finish by hand. A lot of people use whip finishing tools. Those are great. I just find it's faster to whip finish by hand. Fewer tools you have to pick up and put down, the faster you can tie. I'm just going to snip this off, put a little glue on it, and then I'm going to do the final trimming of the wing. And that is really an easy fly to tie. It'll take a little practice to get the eyes cinched on there just right so they don't spin. It's just a little practice working with materials, but this is a super duper easy fly to tie. And I don't really think this fly has a name. It's sort of a combination of a Christmas Island special and maybe a gotcha. Christmas Island special has hair in the wing. This one just happens to be all flash. So now I'm just going to take the scissors and I'm going to get that wing a little bit shorter. You can see it's extending way beyond the length of the tail. So I want to get that a little bit shorter, trim it down. I'll mess around with it a little bit here and just kind of try to find the perfect balance of the wing length. But as you can see, when you cast this fly out there, it's going to land with the eyes down in the sand, the hook point up, and overall with the UV glue on it, this fly is going to be tough. It's going to fish well. You'll catch a lot of bonefish wherever you go with this style fly. Now, you can tie it with Crystal Flash Gold, pink. You can use a Bonefish tan, which I'm going to show on a real quick tie next. There's a color called Gray Ghost. There's pearl, of course. Here I am tying the same fly, but this time with bead chain eyes, and this time with Bonefish tan Crystal Flash. And so I'm just going to do the exact same fly. This is a little bit smaller hook. This is the Gamakatsu hook, but you can see this is going to be a lighter fly. The hook's a little bit smaller, and this is going to be a good fly to fish on a day when we're fishing, you know, a skinny flat where you don't need the fly to plummet right down. You want it to land softly. So there is another example of what you can tie just using Crystal Flash on this pattern. Here's the recipe, and feel free to call our fly shop if you have any questions at all. I'm here to help. Thanks a lot. This is Amy Hazel from Deschutes Angler.